Hello friends, it is my pleasure to invite you to my Photoshop tutorial. My name is Rafi Yakub from Exe Graphics and Multimedia. I'm reaching you live from Lagos State, Nigeria. In today's video, I'm going to teach you guys how you can understand color in Photoshop, that is color psychology in Photoshop. So as you can see on the screen here, our today's topic is color psychology, followed by how to create a new page in Adobe Photoshop CC, how to get more color in Photoshop, how to differentiate between foreground color and background color in Photoshop, how to obtain color from nature in Photoshop, then how to working with layer style to understand gradient color in Photoshop, and how you can differentiate between CMYK and RGB color in Photoshop. So without wasting much of our time, so let's quickly start the tutorial. The first thing we have to do as far as our topic is concerned in this Photoshop class is to make a new page. All you have to do is to open up your Photoshop, just like what you are seeing on the screen here. This is my Photoshop CC 2017. This tutorial, you can make use of any type of Photoshop version. All you have to do is to watch the step I'm taking in this video to understand how you play around with the color in Adobe Photoshop, right? So the first thing we have to do is to go to File. So when you get to File, you click on New. So if you click on New, a dialog like box like this is going to come up from your Photoshop screen. So let's see what is going to load here. All right, friends. So this is layout setting for Adobe Photoshop CC 2017. In case you are using a lower version of Adobe Photoshop, all you have to do is to watch the step I'm going to take to create a new page, because the interface of the lower version of Adobe Photoshop is not going to appear like this, but you don't have any problem. Just watch the step, right? So from this point here, this is where we type the name of our design. So at this point, I'm going to name this color psychology. All right. Then from this point here, I will change this from inches to pixels. Then having changed to pixels, I will come to the width. I will type 1920. Then I will come to the height. I will type 1080. Then I will leave my resolution to be 300, right? Then I will leave my color now to be CMYK. This is just a sample of how you can set a new page in Photoshop. We are still going to talk more about layout setting in Adobe Photoshop. So then we move down to the background content. This background content has to do with the kind of color you want your background to have. So if you click on this arrow, so you are going to see a drop down from this point here, black, background color, and so on and so forth. If you double click this, it's going to bring out a color palette, so whereby you can change the color if you like. But if you are using a very low version of Photoshop, you are not going to see this feature, right? So let me cancel it. So in this case now, I don't need to change the color. I will leave it in white. Then if you look at this advanced option here, if you are using Photoshop CC, you are going to see this option there. So when you click on advanced option, it's going to open up into different another setting that you can try to work around with. But in this case now, we don't need to touch anything under the advanced option. Let us just quickly hide it back. right? So at this point now, the next step we have to take, having set up all our page layout, so the final stage is to click on create to make the new document. All right, guys, so this is how you make a new page in Adobe Photoshop CC 2017. And if you are using a very lower version, just like I remind you in the beginning of this tutorial, you don't have any issue. Just watch the step I take to create a new page in Adobe Photoshop. So let's go into the detail of our tutorial. So the second topic of our tutorial is how to get more color in Adobe Photoshop, right? So how do we get more color in Adobe Photoshop? There are many ways by which you can get a lot of variety of color in Adobe Photoshop. One of the ways is that first, let's go to our toolbar. So if you go to your toolbar and let's select rectangle. So having select rectangle, you notice that at your menu bar here, a rectangle property is going to pop up, right? So from the property here, we have red color as our default. Then here, we don't have any color here. This simply means that no stroke color, right? So if we are to go back to our Photoshop work area now, just drag and draw a rectangle. So if we draw a rectangle like this, we have a default color to be red, right? This is because our foreground color here is red, right? Now, how do we get more color in case we don't want our primary color to be red? There are many ways by which you can do that. If you are using Adobe Photoshop CC Advanced, you are going to see this dialog box here. So if you have this dialog box, you don't have any issue, you are still going to do the same thing. But if you don't have this dialog box, in case of the people that use a very lower version of Adobe Photoshop, you can navigate to your menu bar here and click on this point here. So you see a drop down of a lot of color that you can navigate with in Adobe Photoshop. So each time you are clicking on any of this color, is going to update on the shape. Even when you make use of text tools, it's going to update on the text. So this is how you get more color in Adobe Photoshop. So something like this. Now, let's quickly talk about how you can add stroke color into your shape in Adobe Photoshop. All you have to do is to navigate to this point here. This simply means a stroke color. This is where you add the stroke color to your design. Let's say, for instance, our color here is a dark red and we want to add a black stroke color. All you have to do is to select black. So when you select black, you notice that the black color will appear around the edges of our rectangle, right? So you can navigate to this point here also. Then you can increase the width of the stroke. You can come here also and change the stroke style. So you can decide to use the dash. So you can decide to use the dots, right? So if you don't want to have a stroke color to your Photoshop, simply navigate back to this section and click on this icon here. The color will go. The stroke color and every style will disappear, just like what you are seeing on the screen right now. So the same thing applies to the color field. If you don't want any color field for your shape style, simply navigate to this point and click on no color. Right? And you are done. Okay, so let's quickly move to another segment of our color psychology in CorelDRAW. Now we know how we can get different type of color in Adobe Photoshop. So let me quickly delete this. Now let me drag this to the center. Okay, so one of the way by which you can get more color in Adobe Photoshop CC is that you notice when we draw this rectangle here, so we have something called layer panel. So this under our layer panel here, whatever you are doing in Adobe Photoshop, it will appear on your layer panel. That is the difference between Photoshop and CorelDRAW. This is not applied in CorelDRAW, but in Photoshop, you always work with your layer. It's very much important, all right? So if we are to duplicate this rectangle now, so you can just press alternative key on your keyboard and drag. So let's say we need this in 3 places, then alternative key again and drag. Okay, so one of other way you can make a duplicate of the shape is that you can come to your layer panel here, make sure the shape you want to duplicate or whatever you want to duplicate is active, right click on it, then go to blending option, click on blending option. So the dialog box is going to, oh sorry, right click and look for duplicate layer. So this is going to pump up. From this point you can name it. If you want to change the name of the duplicate, you can say new method to duplicate. So once you are done, then you click on OK. It's going to add into your layer panel. But in this case now, you notice that we cannot see the duplicate. This is because we make use of this kind of method. That's the reason why we cannot see it, but everything is there. All you have to do is to drag it to another places. So we can drag it to the top here. So we can put it here. So now we have 4 objects in our Photoshop. That is why we have 4 layers in our Photoshop. You are less concerned about the background layer, right? So now, how do we play around with color psychology? That is going to be the next thing I'm going to explain in this Photoshop class. Now, let's go to the first object here. So we can double click on this layer thumbnail. So when you double click on layer thumbnail, this is going to pump up. The color palette is going to pump up. This is where you can play around with the color. Now we can navigate from red back to orange. All you have to do is to click on the color slider, take it to any point you need it. So I need to play around with the red now and with orange now. So this is red orange. You can move to the normal orange at this point here. So we can select from our primary orange, move your slider to this place. So you can see we have orange now, right? Then we click on OK. Now let's move to the next shape. You click on this. So when you click on it, then you come back to your layer panel. So double click on the layer thumbnail. So the same thing is going to pump up. Now we need to maintain color from this orange. How do we do that? Go back to the first orange color. you're going to note you're going to have something like eye color dropper. When you click on it, it's going to automatically select the same orange color. Now we need to play around with the color here, so we can turn it back, move our slider down, so we can come here and change to so now one other thing we need to take note here is what we call color code. How do we get that? You notice that each time you play around with your color slider, the figure here will change. Let's see. Now, if I move my color slider to this point here, so you see the color code is changed to another one. So if I move my slider to this, the color code will change. In this case now, this particular color code, we can copy it by highlight, right click, and click on copy. So when you click on copy, then you can click on OK. Now we need this same color for this code, this shape. We need this same color in another shape. So we can click on the shape, then we go back to the layer panel, double click on the layer thumbnail. So it's going to, the color palette is going to pump up. Then we highlight the default color, then we delete it on our keyboard, then we right click on it, then we select paste. So you notice that the same color we have here is going to apply in the other window. Then we can click on OK or we cancel, right?